knows Kathy? Anyone know Kathy at home? Yeah, Kathy is the governor of New York. And I don't know. Let's start with that, Kai. You ready on that? I'm gonna come to you in a second, but I just want to tee this up. So, where do I begin? New York, the dystopian nightmare. Crime just through the roof. Walk around, you're like, oh, let me go to the ATM. Hopefully I don't get held up today. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's true, actually. I know a couple of people that were held up in ATMs in New York City recently. Robberies, thefts, mandates. At least everyone got their vaccine, though, right? At least everyone had their mask on. Unbelievable. So we're going to start with Governor Kathy Hochul actually put a gun control package. I don't know if you saw this through this week. Pretty sweeping. We're not going to dig in on guns today because I want to bring a gun expert on and we're going to talk guns. We're going to talk two-way. You're not going to want to miss that one. But I do have to give you one line that Kathy said that was fascinating. Kai, can you tee that up for us?
Yep, I have it here. So let's see here.
It's good.
And in the state of New York, we're now requiring social media networks to monitor and report hateful conduct on their platforms. Thank you, Senator Anna Kaplan, and thank you, Assigned Member Patricia Fahey.
Okay, so that's fascinating. Oh, look, I'm echoing. That's nice. I told them before the show, I said, guys, I don't have headphones on, and the one bad thing about that is I don't get to hear that sexy voice. You know how you get sexy voice when you have headphones on? Kai knows. That's why Kai has the headphones. He wants to be sexy.
Only that.
He was like, I'm coming in hot, Bila.
Only reason.
I'm coming in hot. Kai wasn't messing around. But I just heard it there for a second, and I have to thank you. It put a little kick in my step. Anyway, so you heard that. This is a gun control package, but they threw something, a little sweet extra nugget in there from New York that the bill would require social media networks to provide a clear and concise policy regarding how they would respond to incidents of hateful conduct on their platform. This is coming in from Forbes, by the way, that I'm reading from. So you look at that and you say to yourself, hateful conduct. We can all get behind that's bad, right? Well, that depends on what you're talking about as hateful. Now, do you trust Kathy Hochul to make that assessment? Do you trust her to make an assessment of what's hateful and what's not? The woman who vilified everyone who didn't want to get an experimental vaccine in New York, you trust her to decide what's hateful? You trust the social media companies that vilified everybody who decided that they wanted to report back with some facts about the vaccine when it came out, the COVID-19 vaccine? Do you trust that? Let me remind you of a little something. I went on The View earlier this year, and I was labeled as misinformation. Hateful conduct, does that quickly become part of the misinformation? Oh, you're misinformation. You're hateful. Does that suddenly become you? Are you hateful because you disagree with the wrong person, or you disagree with the narrative that big tech likes, or that big government likes, or that the left likes, because the left controls these institutions? Ask yourself that. I was labeled as misinformation when I hopped on there for repeating what the CDC had said, which was simply that you can get COVID whether you're vaccinated or you're not. If you're vaccinated, you can still get and spread the disease. The CDC had already said that. I was repeating it, but I was labeled misinformation because it was an inconvenient truth and it didn't fit the narrative that ABC wanted out there, or that people on that show wanted out there. So I ask you, are you comfortable with something like that? Does that give you pause? Hateful conduct. What does that look like? What does that mean? Who gets to define it? There's another cute nugget in here also from Kathy, Clueless Kathy, on guns. She says this, you have to laugh. New York already has some of the toughest gun laws in the country, but clearly we need to make them even stronger, she says. So Kathy is wondering why the crime is going up in New York despite some really strong gun laws. Now, I said we weren't going to get into guns here, but maybe Kathy should consider fixing the criminal justice system. Maybe she should consider that it might be a problem that criminals get out of jail in New York. They have almost no consequence, and then they're back on the streets pretty quickly oftentimes. Maybe she should consider the fact that the police force has felt completely unsupported for the last X amount of years, since really the Giuliani years, truthfully. Maybe she should think about what Bill de Blasio did to the city. And I know, Kathy, we're dealing with the governor, so it's the whole state. I'm focusing on New York City, though, because New York City is the biggest problem there. It's the biggest problem. There's a huge distinction. I don't know how much you know about New York. You go upstate, it's like a different planet. New York City is a bubble that is a problem for the state. when it comes to crime, when it comes to pretty much everything. And I always listen to people who talk about gun control. It's always fascinating to me. I wonder, I mean, does Kathy think about it, criminal at home, sitting home, says, tomorrow I'm going to go and I'm going to hold up an ATM. But first, I need to make sure I follow all of the proper steps of how to get a gun. I want to make sure I do it all right, Kai. I want to make sure, I don't want to break any rules before I go in.
That'd be too much.
Right? I mean, that's just not what's happening, right? That's not how criminals, how people who intend to cause harm think. They're not worried about following gun laws, right? So people who follow gun laws are people who are responsible citizens. So Kathy's missing a few, that's why I call her Clueless Kathy. But I want to get back to that hateful language. Be wary of anyone using stuff like that. We're going to stop misinformation. What's misinformation? Who decides? We're going to stop hateful language. What's hateful? Is it just stuff that incites violence? Is it stuff you don't like? Is it stuff that just makes you uncomfortable? Think about all the safe spaces in schools now. It's just about what makes you uncomfortable. So a kid's in a class and he hears opinion he doesn't like and he's like, I'm uncomfortable. That's violent language. May not be violent, may not be hateful, may just be something he doesn't like. So there is a very big slippery slope happening.
I also have a question in terms of this is when I talk to my friends, a lot of what I can say could be considered very hateful. Now, I mean it in a sarcastic way and we're joking and we're having fun, but how is somebody monitoring that and being able to be like, oh, that's hateful or that's not hateful? I mean, I can say something and be like, wow, that's like, what is going on here? And just if you read the words, it could be considered very hateful, but obviously in a sarcastic tone, or they know my personality, they know that I'm just joking or something like that.
Right. It's subjective. It's
100%.
entirely, unless it's like, I'm going to come kill you. Okay, that's not subjective.
And even in that case,
right.
You sent me a meme and I'm like, Jedediah, you're killing me.
Right.
Like,
right.
Is that hateful now? Like, are you actually killing me? Like,
and you bring up a great point, and that is the point, really. Because this isn't about hateful speech. This isn't about misinformation. I mean, a talking point went out. Misinformation, use that. All these people challenging what you're saying. Yeah, just misinformation. Label them misinformation. People were deplatformed.
100%.
People lost their jobs. People, I mean, this is being used to destroy people's lives. So my question is, I don't know where this is going, but I surmise that hateful is going to be quite broad, and that it will be used as a political tool, especially in a place like New York, against political opponents before you can blink. If you like the short clip, you can catch another one here, or you can catch the full episode right here.